especially appreciative of our very own Kathy Sork and Pam Smith, and our esteemed speakers for giving us the chance to gather and celebrate the installation of this marker safely today. The drive, perseverance, and achievements of Lakewood women like Bernice Pike certainly warrant remembrance and celebration today and for years to come. As we stand on the shoulders of giants like Bernice, I look forward to seeing what modern-day trails we continue to blaze as members of the League and women and men of Lakewood.
103 years ago, our community came together and embraced the rights of people who are not being recognized elsewhere. Incredibly, we're not done. While this is a historic marker, this is not a historic topic. Gender inequality still exists. Racial inequality still exists. The turmoil nationally over the past several weeks and the peaceful, productive demonstrations here in Lakewood tell me there's so much more to do. I am proud to be Lakewood's mayor and fulfill maybe one part of the vision those women had over a century ago. Let's appreciate this marker not only as a proud highlight of Lakewood's past, but as a reminder to keep moving forward in the present. Thank you.
There's a reason that it was brought to this spot and it sits here. It became City Hall in 1919, and as the right to vote was recognized, this property served as our civic center. So there's no more fitting place than this for this marker.
Bernice Pike, my grandmother, was called out on the marker as a leader of the women's suffrage campaign. Let me tell you about her involvement. In 1905, newly married, she moved to Lakewood, and it was in Lakewood where she passed away in 1964. In the intervening years, she accomplished a remarkable number of firsts. Among them, 1920, first woman delegate to a national political convention, the Democratic Convention in San Francisco. 1921, the first woman candidate for mayor of Lakewood. She lost by 900 votes. 1932, first woman to serve in the city of Cleveland as a cabinet member. She was the director of welfare. In 1934, she was the first woman collector of customs, and she served for 20 years. But today I want to focus briefly on her suffragist career. In the 1912 November elections, the Women's Suffrage Party positioned women at all the polling places to hand out suffragist literature. And my grandmother joined them, and she never looked back. Soon after, she was organizing suffrage meetings, speaking at countless suffrage meetings. She even called on women in their homes to urge them to support the movement. She spoke confidently and forcefully, and she was a very skilled organizer. First big suffrage parade in Cleveland took place in October 1914, with 5,000 women marching down Euclid Avenue in white gowns with yellow banners across their shirtwaists. My grandmother was in charge of keeping the women in orderly lines, and just as she was passing East 6th Street, she was greeted by some yells from the curb. She looked over, and it was her husband and her brother, both grinning and shouting encouragement. The suffrage bill lost again in the 1914 election, following which my grandmother became the chairman of the Lakewood Suffrage Party. And 2 years later, she became vice chairman of the Suffrage Party of Greater Cleveland. When the women's right to vote was placed on the 1917 Lakewood ballot, due to the efforts of many women, including my grandmother, the state suffrage party took notice of the strong Lakewood initiative, and they provided support to the Lakewood campaign. And then, as the marker says, the men voted in November to grant women the right to vote in municipal elections. A newspaper credited my grandmother's powerful speech to Lakewood City Council as the turning point in in a successful campaign.
It was a real privilege for Kathy and I to work on this marker. The more research we did, the more grateful we became for the town that we live in and the women that have gone before us. The women that campaigned for this were truly amazing. And they engendered that same feeling through all the men in the community who voted positively by an overwhelming majority in 1917 to give them the vote. And they didn't stop there. They immediately started educating the rest of the women in Lakewood, all corners of Lakewood, to vote and to vote responsibly. And just as the League of Women Voters is open to men, guess who came to many of their sessions on good citizenship? The male voters of Lakewood. So we'd like to unveil our monument. And it reads, on both sides, thanks to the Pomeroy Foundation's wonderful funding for this marker, Lakewood women get the right to vote. Get the vote. Women's suffrage. The right for women to vote was part of the women's rights movement in the United States from the mid-1800s through the early 1900s. In 1912 and 1914, the women's suffrage was on the state ballot in Ohio. Both times, the issue failed statewide, but passed in Lakewood. Led by Bernice Pike, Lakewood women participated in the suffrage party of Greater Cleveland and gained support for their cause. Lakewood City Council put the suffrage issue on the local ballot in 1917. The male voters of Lakewood passed it, allowing women to vote in municipal elections. In 1919, Ohio ratified the 19th Amendment, which was added to the U.S. Constitution in 1920 and granted women the right to vote in all elections. The Lakewood League of Women Voters was chartered in 1922 and remains active a century later. Thank you very much.